this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Tired of spills and stains on your sofa? Wash away your worries with Anabay. Anabay is the only machine washable sofa inside and out, where designer quality meets budget-friendly prices. That's right, sofas start at just $699. Enjoy a no-risk experience with pet-friendly, stain-resistant, and changeable slip covers made with performance fabric. Experience cloud-like comfort with high-resilience foam that's hypoallergenic and never needs fluffing. The sturdy steel frame ensures longevity, and the modular pieces can be rearranged anytime. Shop WashableSofas.com for up to 60% off site-wide, backed by a 30-day satisfaction guarantee. If you're not absolutely in love, send it back for a full refund. No return shipping or restocking fees. Every penny back. Upgrade now at WashableSofas.com. Offers are subject to change, and certain restrictions may apply.
When I was diagnosed, all I wanted to do was get back to work. I wanted to get back to that trajectory that I was on prior to the cancer. I always felt like I had value, I had a place on the team. To just be treated with dignity, it means everything.
Research shows there is a significant connection between the ability to continue to work and cancer recovery. We can make work a better place for healing.
Learn more and sign the pledge at workingwithcancerpledge.com.
Welcome back in, Clay, Travis, Buck Sexton show. We got some great guests coming your way in the next couple of hours, but we have got tomorrow, Buck, you mentioned that the Supreme Court is going to be hearing oral arguments on whether birthright citizenship should or should not be the law of the land. And look, I'm not optimistic that the Supreme Court is going to be willing to do what I think they should do, which is say that this whole concept of that citizenship by soil as opposed to citizenship by blood, which we'll get into some tomorrow, is going to be really interesting to hear how those questions come down. But in the meantime, we did have a Supreme Court ruling that came down 8-1 a little bit earlier today, right before, in fact, we came on the air. 8-1 Supreme Court ruling saying that a law in Colorado which tried to ban conversion therapy, which we'll get into a bit, was unconstitutional. The only justice that lined up and said, hey, I think this ban was constitutional was Ketanji Brown Jackson. And even Elena Kagan went after Ketanji Brown Jackson, who filed a 35-page dissent. And it is, look, I think the last curse of the Joe Biden era is unfortunately going to be with us for a generation plus, which is he put a wholly unqualified far left-wing politician, not a judge, far left-wing politician on the court, and even left-wingers on the court are, I think, frankly, embarrassed that Ketanji Brown Jackson is there. And Buck, even Elena Kagan, who, whatever you want to say about Elena Kagan, she is a smart, principled leftist jurist, but understands how the law works. I think former dean of Harvard Law School. You may not agree with her, but you're going to read her opinion and say there is a foundation of constitutional jurisprudence undergirding her opinions. That is not occurring here. And, unfortunately, Ketanji Brown Jackson basically is going to be worthless for generations.
But just to give everybody a little bit of a background on this, right? So the Supreme Court, Clay mentioned, 8-1 decision, Chiles versus Salazar, Chiles v. Salazar. And so Kaylee Chiles was a licensed Christian mental health counselor in Colorado who was giving talk therapy to people, and she was working with clients who wanted to reduce same-sex attraction. The state of Colorado had a law in place, and there are other states with this, that prohibits people this was a licensed therapist, prohibits licensed therapists from working with people at their request to talk through and reduce same-sex attraction or gay attraction, right? And meanwhile, they also had a law. This is the part of it that was really telling you what's going on. By the way, what happened to Colorado? I used to think of Colorado as like cowboys in the mountains. And now it's like communists running wild. It's just gotten completely the politics there.
Yeah, and remember, Buck, the Colorado Supreme Court is such a mess that they said it was constitutional. Everybody forgets. Democrats tried to take Trump off the ballot in Colorado. Supreme Court said you can do this. The United States Supreme Court said 9-0 you can't. It's hard to get 9-0.
I know. Even Jackson. Think about that.
Even
Jackson
crazy
was like,
Ketanji Brown Jackson was like, guys, you went too far.
Think about how stupid that is. A state thought that they could remove a person from the ballot who had no criminal conviction and no constitutional bar to running. Think about how insane that is.
Yes.
I mean, that anyone actually ever, and there were people going on MSNBC, I'm a legal scholar, I defend this, Anyway, back to this gender therapy, or same-sex attraction therapy stuff. Clay, if somebody went in, though, seeking therapy to make them more trans, that was under the law. Yes, you could make somebody more, you could push somebody down the trans path, but you could not push them back from the edge of the gay path, essentially. And so the law was clearly, I mean, this is obviously First Amendment discrimination. There's no, eight justices found this to be First Amendment discrimination. Ketanji Brown Jackson decided that words were medical care in this context. So essentially, she was treating this like a surgery. And so if you tell somebody, hey, maybe you're not gay, maybe you're just in a moment of confusion in your sexuality, but this was for minors, mind you. So these are including teenagers. Maybe you're not gay, maybe you're having a moment. Let's talk this through. That's like doing a unchangeable surgery on somebody, which, by the way, they do on the other side for the trans people. They actually do surgery, but words here were being treated by Ketanji Brown Jackson. I mean, she really is. She's the MSNBC comment section made into a Supreme Court justice. Yes. She is untethered to the law and unhinged when it comes to the Constitution.
It kind of gave you a sense that there was a discomfort with her being on the Supreme Court, where a lot of times they're very collegial relationships, even across different perspectives on how to apply constitutional jurisprudence.
I think Scalia and RBG were tight.
That's a great example. They were very good friends, even though intellectually they disagreed very often. There was a acceptance of a principled disagreement on how to apply the law across, to Buck's point, Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, both very smart, and had different readings. Elena Kagan, I think that there are a lot of people out there who say, hey, I may not agree with her, renderings of judgment, but I trust the intellectual heft that she is bringing to bear on those opinions. When Amy Coney Barrett, Buck, I thought it was very significant. Amy Coney Barrett does not seem like the kind of person who wants to take a 2x4 to people very often. She seems like what she is, a mom who tries to be kind. And some of her responses to Ketanji Brown Jackson were the equivalent judicially of just throwing your hands up in the air and saying, I can't even stomach these arguments. They're embarrassing. They don't recognize any past precedent. And Elena Kagan kind of did that in this 8-1 opinion. Again, on the left, Elena Kagan kind of saying, like, come on, this is an utterly ridiculous. To your point, Buck, I think it's a, blue sky, Reddit board, far left wing take. And that's fine if you have far left wing takes. But being a judge who does this is just, again, I think the final awful echo and reverberation of the Biden administration that unfortunately is going to be with us for generations.
And he told us that he was going to limit the pool to black female jurists, which, given the actual interpretation of the Constitution in most recent years, is really not okay. Not allowed to do that. I don't know how you, I don't know what you can do about the legality of such a thing. But Clay, if we put out a job, let's just say we put out a job opening for this show and we said, hey guys, great opening. You know, we got great producers here. We're going to have a fabulous team for you to work with. We're only hiring black women for this job.
Yeah.
We would be sued and we would lose.
Yes.
No question. And by the way, rightly so. Like, that would be a clear violation of the standards that you can use under the Constitution and under non-discrimination in employment. That's how he set up a Supreme Court appointment. He said it out loud too. It's not like we're surmising this. He said it out loud, and you have somebody who is just. I agree with you, by the way. I see things differently than Kagan, but I respect that she's at least trying to stay within the law.
Yeah,
Ketanji Brown Jackson, you know what she's going to do more or less based upon what your standard MSNBC watching leftist wants to happen.
Yeah,
which is not the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and again, it's not even a judge opinion. It's just crazy left-wing opinion. And I said this at the time. Ketanji Brown Jackson's appointment under federal law was unconstitutional. What do I mean by that? You are not allowed under federal law to say, I am only going to consider a black woman for a job. First of all, it's demeaning to the black woman. Because if you pick a black woman for a job and you've eliminated, 97%, I think, of lawyers, 98% maybe even, were eliminated on their face when Biden said, I'm only going to pick a black woman. So you're saying I'm only picking a judge from 2% of the legal community. And then he picked one that was not particularly astute or talented in the black female legal community.
Can we unpack this for a second? Let's unpack this for a second. He picked her. She had been a judge before. Okay. Did she have a leg up in that appointment because she was a black woman? Yes.
The only reason she got the job in the first place was because she was a black woman.
Right, but I'm saying, just keep working it back from there.
Yeah.
Oh, she went to Harvard Law. Okay. What were her LSATs?
Yeah.
Did she have a leg? We know that generally speaking, overwhelmingly, black students of her age that went to Harvard would have had a tremendous benefit from their race that, as we know, the Supreme Court has actually said you were not supposed to have. You're not supposed to have that. That's wrong. So you can work it all the way back. And people, because when you'll say, oh, she's not qualified, they'll say, well, she was a judge before and she went to Harvard Law. Yeah? Well, did she have those things because she was a black female? These are entirely valid questions, which I know until recently we're told we're not allowed to ask these questions, but actually, no, you can ask these questions. Because like we said, Elena Kagan is a gay woman. She's a lesbian. She's a very talented lawyer and she's very, very smart.
Yeah.
So it's not about identity, but the left makes it about identity. There are black women who would be great on the Supreme Court. There are black women who would absolutely deserve that job. I don't think that Ketanji Brown Jackson is one of them.
I agree.
And that's just, observing what we can all see here, because they never say, look at the depth and clarity of the opinions. I know they have staffs, but the opinions put out on her. Look at the depth and clarity. Clay, she speaks like 5 times as much as all the other jurors together or something. I mean, it's not that much, but it's a lot.
Well, and again, that goes to, I think that she has broken a lot of the collegial norms. I think a lot of people are fed up with her on the court. And I think even leftists are of the opinion, like Elena Kagan is, where they just kind of roll their eyes and say, this is a poor choice. And she's going to be there, Buck, for 30 more years. A
very long time. Well, but also it's a reminder, Biden, we got sold on Biden to the degree that we were actually sold on him. Just let's move past that for a second. The country was sold on Biden, so to speak, as the uniter, Clay. and as he's not a radical. Well, what better example can you have of the actual radicalism and practice of the Biden administration, which we could sit here and we did for years talk about it, but whether it's the COVID stuff or the spending or the trans policies or the wide open border, Joe Biden was the Trojan horse for far left Obamaist policy, if you will. And there's no better example of him being a far left figurehead than Ketanji Brown Jackson. That's the moderate Supreme Court justice that we get from a Biden administration.
Also remember that he picked Kamala Harris after saying he would pick a woman as his running mate and eliminating all men from consideration. And then he took it a step further by saying, I will only pick a black woman. And the result is, I think we have ended up with the least qualified, most political Supreme Court justice in any of our lives. And I was just looking up to see how old she is. And unfortunately, Buck, we're going to probably have her if age is any expectation for another 30 years. I would also point this out as we go to break here. Supreme Court requires a majority Senate approval. There is a possibility out there that Republicans could lose the Senate in November, and that Trump basically would not be able to get anybody appointed. Just like with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who thought, hey, I'm going to live forever, and left behind the opportunity to have Obama be able to appoint her replacement. Look at this situation right now. We've got Clarence Thomas around 75. We've got Alito around 74, if I'm not mistaken. It may be 5 or 6 years until Republicans have what they have now, which is control of the Senate and the presidency to be able to control who gets on the Supreme Court. Everybody who gets into their 70s seems to think that they're going to live forever and be healthy forever. The data often reflects that's not true at all.
All right, last night I was at an event in West Palm Beach for our incredible sponsor that we're honestly honored to be affiliated with and to help in every way that we can, Tunnel to Towers Foundation. I heard the stories of families that have been helped, Gold Star families, heard from people involved with Tunnel to Towers day in and day out and how meaningful the work is to them. And Clay has gone and been a part of their events. My wife has taken part in their events. We just love everything Tunnel to Towers stands for. This nonprofit, you know them well. They help our military families and families of first responders in their time of need. They live by the motto, never forget. That means to never forget the sacrifice our first responders made on 9/11. And this May through September, the foundation's Steel Across America tour is transporting a powerful symbol of reverence and resilience to communities across the country, an authentic steel beam from the World Trade Center. In honor of the 343 members of the New York City Fire Department who made the ultimate sacrifice on 9/11, the foundation is delivering 343 mortgage-free homes to heroes and their families while continuing their efforts to eradicate veteran homelessness. The 9/11 Institute's educational curriculum is reaching classrooms nationwide, while firsthand accounts are being shared through the 9/11 Speakers Bureau, and the foundation's mobile exhibit is traveling to communities across America, informing generations. Join us in donating $11 a month and amplify your impact with a car or land donation. Go to T2T.org. That's T2T.org.
Patriots, radio hosts, a couple of regular guys, Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Find them on the free iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Tired of spills and stains on your sofa? Wash away your worries with Anabay. Anabay is the only designer sofa that's machine washable inside and out, starting at just $699. Plus, Anabay sofas are pet-friendly, stain-resistant, and feature changeable slip covers and modular pieces. Get up to 60% off site-wide with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Visit washablesofas.com to get yours now. That's washablesofas.com. Offers are subject to change and certain restrictions may apply.
I need to be healthy every day to survive it and go through the next chemo round and the next chemo round. So it's important that work was part of that, to keep my mind busy for 8-9 hours. And then I had to go back and face the reality. I had a goal, and the goal is to survive.
Research shows there is a significant connection between the ability to continue to work and cancer recovery. We can make work a better place for healing.
Learn more and sign the pledge at workingwithcancerpledge.com.
All right, welcome back in here to Clay and Buck.
Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. We bring in The View's most hated villain, Isabel Brown, who had the audacity to suggest that people get married and have kids. And true to form, I believe you have a young child in the background, but that child is sleeping, I think I've been told right now. So if she starts to scream, everything is fine, but you are living as you have preached. Buck was pointing out, I got married when I was 25, Isabel. And I had my first, we had our first kid when I was 28. He is now going off to college, this coming fall. And it's the best decision that I ever made. We're fortunate to have 3. And I got started somewhat young for a lot of men, at least who go to school for a long time. What has your experience been like, and what is the reaction to The View attacking you been like? Because I just think this is amazing that you got attacked for telling people get married and have kids is a way to be happy.
Yeah, you know, Clay, I'll say first, I love that. The View's most hated woman. I might have to make that my Instagram bio moving forward. That's pretty fun. And in true working mom fashion, as expected, based on what happened yesterday, we're in a crazy busy schedule. So thank you guys for all bearing with me. Clearly, I'm on the road between a million different news hits today, and my daughter is speaking in the background. But truly, like you said, this has been the greatest honor of my lifetime. I had a baby at 28 as well. She'll be 1 at the end of next month. And though I am still a working mom and working full time, my relationship with my husband and my relationship with my daughter will be infinitely more important to me than my paycheck than at any other time in my life, especially right now. So I had the audacity to share that on stage at CPAC last week as part of a question I was asked on a larger panel about the importance of family. And never in my wildest dreams as a conservative podcaster did I expect that would be what The View is attempting to cancel me over. Yet here we are, where someone like Whoopi Goldberg has the audacity to actually look in the camera and say, if you tell women to have as many children as they want to, then I'm sending you back to the past, insinuating that that is not a valid choice and you should not want children if you are a member of Generation Z in this country. I, for one, am really grateful because the demons are getting pretty loud, but it's so obvious to me which side is for American families and for actual women's empowerment in 2026.
You know, Isabel, I have to tell you, I think that the message that you're putting out there, and you're a great messenger for it, and I really mean this. I hope that you can get out and speak, just to as many young women, especially who are on that, starting off that career track. They want to make partner at Goldman, or they want to be, a partner at Cravath or whatever, those are big names in New York City. They want to be the law firm in DC or the big law firm in Atlanta, or they want to be the marketing firm in Chicago. And there's so much in the culture that tells them, wait, grind it out like a guy in your 20s in terms of the hours. I got to tell you, because I'm on the other side of this. You're so young that I can ask your age. What are you? You're not even 30 yet, are you? How old are you?
I am 28.
Yeah, you're 28. So you're a youngin'. I mean, you're a young blood. I'm 44. Clay is like 70. I don't even know how old Clay is. Like Clay is like, he's like Gandalf the Wizard on this show. And I sit here and I say, I have so many peers, women my age that I grew up with, particularly in New York, and they turned around at 40, and maybe they had the big career, maybe they didn't, but they turned around and said, okay, time to find a guy and get married, because they deprioritized it, and it didn't happen. And they're so unhappy about it. And they tell me this. And for The View not to be honest with its audience about this, I think is just really disgraceful.
Disgraceful is a perfect word for it. And honestly, what's even more disturbing to me is that every single woman sitting around that table yesterday, except for one, has children, and every one of them, except for one, has either been married in the past or is currently married. The one who isn't is engaged to be married. So it's good enough for them, and they're able to make this working mom lifestyle work, but it's not good enough for general people who apparently can't afford to spend $400,000 on childcare every year. Talk about just blatant propaganda and lies. And what's really sad to me, too, beyond all of this, Clay and Buck, is that as a working mom in particular, I realize that there are sacrifices that have to be made everywhere in order to make that type of lifestyle work. My mom, as a working mom, always famously said, you can have it all, but not at the same time. And you need a great team behind you to make that happen. But how unbelievably pathetic with the bigotry of low expectations to tell women that it is not possible to have a thriving career and to have children. Look at our second lady of the United States. Look at the White House press secretary. Look at partners in law firms and news anchors and entrepreneurs and investment bankers all over this country who are figuring out a way to manage both, but more importantly, to prioritize their family and share that with their children in the process. If you are a young woman listening to this today thinking you cannot have a career and a family at the same time, you absolutely can, and stop letting Democrats tell you that's not possible.
Well, and look, thank you for coming on with us. And we've talked about this with you before. To me, having a baby is actually the most important thing that a couple can do, because this is one where I don't think it gets any attention. Everybody wants to talk about catastrophes and how awful things can be. Many of the greatest Western civilizations in the world are having their population collapse. Japan, Italy, many parts of the United States, because if women don't have an average of 2.1 children, then the population collapses in a hurry. I was looking at the data on South Korea the other day. I think in South Korea, it's less than one child. So while you're focusing on the United States, this is actually a Western civilization, highly educated, major issue that is occurring across the world right now. We used to talk about being too much population. There's a legitimate argument that the population of the world has already peaked and has begun to collapse. And, that doesn't seem ideal to me.
No, not ideal. In fact, the ladies of The View screamed about how we have 8 billion people on the planet. What's a few more? Why do we need to have a few more? In fact, 55% of the countries on the face of this planet that make up 2/3 of the world's population are below replacement rate, meaning they're not having 2.1 children per family. We are not in an overpopulation crisis. We are in a severely underpopulation crisis. And it's time for us all to pitch in, because we love humanity and we want it to continue to thrive.
One other thing here, I think it's important, Isabel, cost. People throughout history have managed to raise children. You mentioned The View said it costs $400,000 or whatever the heck they said. Buck and I were just talking about this. I think that having children actually makes parents make more rational choices and put themselves in better positions than they would be if they didn't have children, because your stakes as a provider go up so much more significantly than if you're just a single person. In other words, I think career success often follows parenthood as opposed to the reverse.
Absolutely correct. We're covering this at length in my full unadulterated response to The View from my episode of my podcast. But it turns out a new study that came out last year actually found, my daughter wants to weigh in, that your wealth throughout your lifetime goes up by 23% if you have children, because you are making those smarter decisions in investing for your future and saving for retirement, making sure you're providing for your family. This lie that all of a sudden, A, the most important thing is your bank account is insane, but B, that all of a sudden you're going to be severely impoverished to living in poverty for the rest of your life if you have a child, is truly just another arm of the propaganda that they must peddle in order to convince young women to abandon the idea of a family.
Do you feel like, we're speaking to Isabel Brown of the Daily Wire, got to give some shout outs. You can go check out her podcast because she's got kids to feed. But if we're speaking to Isabel Brown about what's going on here in this conversation that she's taken on just by telling women the truth, and the women of The View taking umbrage, really. And I think that's the proper word, umbrage. Some of it is just their Trump derangement, of course. They're like, how could you have kids in a world where Donald Trump is president? It's like, I don't know, like, to not have kids because Trump is president is certifiably insane and should probably institutionalize if that's your point of view. But beyond that, I feel like the culture is starting to change. There's a shift now, Isabel, where it's not considered anti-women or anti-female, or at least you can't be shouted down the same way for saying things like, one, being a mom, for most moms that I've ever talked to, and I know a lot of moms, I'm married to one, and I had one, that being a mom is the job that they revere the most of all jobs. And number two, that sure, if you want to pursue a career, if you have a certain area of excellence that you want to pursue in the workplace, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with being a mom and taking a break from that and going back to it later. That I just feel like, you know, I had so many women in my class at Amherst. I'll just speak to my personal experience. I'll speak from the I perspective, who went into investment banking. And Clay, I remember thinking at the time, that's a horrible idea, because all the guys who are doing it are going to crash out. They're not going to last more than a few years for the most part. They're going to try to transition to other areas of finance. They were essentially mortgaging their 20s to make money in abundance so that they could then be a provider for a family later on. Women don't have to make these same choices. They don't have to compete in areas like this if they don't want to. And I just feel like they're being pushed into this in a lot of capacity. Again, they should have the freedom to do whatever they want work-wise. I get that. But I feel like the culture has shifted, and they're telling women, you can be a mom, it's okay. You can be a mom young, and it's okay. You can pick a career later, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. And I do think it also matters, if I can jump in here for a second, to say there is a gender divide here that matters very, very deeply. Recently, Pew Research found that for young men under 35, their number one and number two political priorities are to get married and to have children. But for women under 35, whether you voted for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris in the last major election, that's their second to last priority, politically speaking, at the personal level and at the country level. It's because of this propaganda that's being directly targeted to young women in particular, and why it matters for female voices and these beautiful feminine voices with influence, people like Brett Cooper and Riley Gaines and Allie Beth Stuckey, promoting the joy of motherhood to this generation. That's how we continue to continue shifting that culture, the same way you just mentioned, but buck the trend of all of this crazy stuff we see on The View and the likes of other network shows.
I want to let you talk to young women on this in particular, but Buck and I were just talking about it before you came on. There is a biological difference between men and women when it comes to having children, particularly if women out there are thinking, hey, I'd like to have 2 or I'd like to have 3, which is, I think, why population is often collapsing. Because if women wait until they're 35 to have their first kid, the math on having multiple kids becomes very difficult. If men wait until they're 35 to have their first kid and marry younger, we don't have the same biological constraints. Does part of this tie in to trying to convince women that men and women are exactly equal biologically? I see this as connected with like men being able to play women's sports and all these things. There's a big difference between the sexes, and women are being sold a bill of goods. Men don't have to think about babies, frankly, as early as women do.
Yeah. Well, Clay, that's so oppressive of you. How dare you suggest that there remotely is a biological difference between men and women? The women of The View actually pointed this out yesterday on the show, that we're all one group of women. And I'm realizing now they're admitting that you do need a uterus in order to qualify as a woman. It's impossible to be a woman with a penis. So glad we arrived here in 2026. All of that said, there's certainly a biological component to all of this. And I don't find it coincidental that as you've seen the decline of the American family from the numbers perspective and the decline in our fertility rate, you're also watching 1 in 7 married couples today trying to conceive, facing what they're calling unexplained infertility, because this is waiting so much later in life to when you're facing all kinds of issues that's also being exacerbated by our food supply and the pharmaceutical industry. But the reason the fertility rate is the lowest it's been in 100 years in America today in 2026 is largely because women are just choosing not to have kids. That is a severe problem. It's something that you don't have the opportunity to go back in time and reverse, and needs to be messaged to women while they're young, and that ability is before them.
Women should have kids in their 20s biologically. That's just the reality.
Yep.
Isn't it strange that to say that, it's almost like you can't say anymore, or at least they try to make you not say that women do not in fact have penises. You're also not allowed to say that biologically it's best for women. They have the highest chance of success, the highest chance of a successful pregnancy, all of those things in their 20s. In their 30s, yes, too, but it starts to go down. In your 40s, you're talking about it's called the geriatric pregnancy, over 35. It's high risk for a reason. That's what it is called. So anyway, you got to keep speaking the truth on this, Isabel. We appreciate you. Go to the Daily Wire, listen to Isabel Brown. And also, I'll just note the little baby in the background. Perfect. Perfect
Yes.
for this conversation. I got to say, it's like you couldn't have timed it any better.
Yeah. You know, the women
fantastic.
of The View may all be moms, but this is what real working mom life looks like. It's not in a multi-million-dollar TV studio, and yet it's the most beautiful thing I've ever done. It's worth pursuing if you're listening to this.
Yeah. Even the ones on The View who are moms, I doubt they've ever changed a diaper themselves. I think the staff does that for them, but that's another conversation. Thanks so much, Isabel. Great to talk to you. You know,
Thank you, guys.
Here in Florida, land of the free, I love it. The sun can do a number on your plants, though. I love that beautiful sunshine, big, beautiful sunshine. But it can scorch your plants if you don't have the right kind of plants. This is a problem. Carrie and I have dealt with this. I'm going to tell you, out on our balconies, we have plants, and they look like they've been lit on fire sometimes because we have the wrong plants. But this is where fast-growing trees comes in, okay? Fast-growing trees is awesome, not just because of the variety, so many different plants, trees, all kinds of stuff, but also the expertise. Because you can buy really cool looking stuff, but if it's not right for your area, whether you're in Michigan or Miami, if it's not right for your area, you're not going to have a good result. And having plants, having stuff in your yard, around your house, plant life that is beautiful that you can just, you can enjoy, it really just brightens up your day. And I think it's critical. So Carrie set up a whole call with Fast Growing Trees where they walked us through this is what we need. And guess what? We've got all this amazing stuff, this beautiful bamboo. It is on the way right now. Fast Growing Trees. And they've got an Alive and Thrive guarantee with everything you order. That's how well they've nurtured your new trees and plants. We'll have trees growing this spring from Fast Growing Trees on our balconies, which we have like 8 of them at my house or something. So they're really, really important. You should be doing the same for your yard, for whatever you've got fenced in around your house, indoor, outdoor, fastgrowingtrees.com. Use my name, Buck, as your promo code to get 20% off your first order. If you know a lot about trees and plants, or you want to know a lot, Fast Growing Trees is what you need. Fastgrowingtrees.com. Use my name, Buck, for 20% off.
News you can count on. And some laughs, too. Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Find them on the free iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome in hour number 3, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton show. We are rolling through the program. We're going to have from NASA Jared Isaacman on at the bottom of the program as the launch date for Artemis is set to happen tomorrow, assuming the weather remains strong. And in good stead there. We are rolling through the program. I want to mention you, stock market up nearly 1,000 points as the overall temperature, I think it's fair to say, in Iran is being dialed back. We've got a lot of different topics to get into with our guests now. Chip Roy running for Attorney General of Texas. And we'll get into some major domestic politics related issues. But Congressman, right off the top, let's just kind of, obviously the Iran story is huge. You talk with the White House quite a lot. You know the oil and gas industry well as you represent the state of Texas. If the president were to ask your advice, as it pertains to where we are about a month into the strikes on Iran, you would tell him what as it pertains to the best possible outcome at this point?
Well, Clay, great to be on. I mean, first of all, I think what the president's doing is important for resetting the entire field over there, and he's putting a lot of pressure on our enemies, to be blunt, Russia, China, who are feeling the strain of this, and even Europe, who have not been stepping up their uphold their end of the bargain, as he noted today. So you guys should go over here and invest in order to open up the straits. Now, the good news is we've seen a lot of the oil moving through the straits. I think my advice, which I would offer very carefully, because he's the commander-in-chief, he's in charge of our national security foreign policy. But my advice is, look, stay the course on making sure we take out Iran's offensive capabilities, both conventional and nuclear. Stay the course on doing that. That was the long-term threat. That's why they've had the destabilization over the last 5 decades. But not to get too invested in this such that we're in a quagmire where we've got boots on the ground and a massive expenditure. Like, the American people don't really want to go down that road. So let's knock out their capabilities. Let's keep up the diplomatic pressure. Let's put pressure on the rest of the world to step up and stop Iran from continuing to have the threats that they have. and then we can get back in the business of worrying about the election in the fall. I want to say credit to the president. Politically, people have said, don't do this, right? And he saw the moment to go try to knock the knees out from under Iran, both for our benefit, obviously to support our ally Israel, but importantly to reset the global geopolitical landscape. And he's done that. My caution is do not get, mired in a quagmire with respect to troops on the ground over there for any extended period of time.
Congressman, appreciate you being with us. It's Buck. Can we talk about this situation of the DHS and TSA and the funding and where this all stands now? It looks like, and we think that it might have had some of its, at least, genesis on this show with an idea from a caller, but it looks like the ICE backfill of TSA agents has at least alleviated some of the strain at the airports. And now where does all of this stand with Congress? The whole thing is just such a disgrace that people's, vacations, work trips, all this stuff were ruined so that Chuck Schumer could nag us all about ICE enforcement. What is the status of the funding and what happens next?
Well, I think as everybody saw last week, I just want to give a big shout out to Speaker Mike Johnson for doing, I think, the right thing of having the House of Representatives send a shot back to the Senate, making very clear we believe we should fund all of the Department of Homeland Security, TSA, FEMA, Coast Guard, but importantly, ICE and Border Patrol. And we weren't going to allow the Democrats to isolate ICE and Border Patrol. We need to stay behind all of them. I know that we're working through ways to break the back of the Democrats who are refusing to fund these important security agencies when we're engaged in conflict with Iran, when we had terrorist attacks here on our own soil, and where we've got, rattling by Hezbollah and others. In the meantime, we have a weakened state without full funding for Coast Guard, ICE, Border Patrol. So God bless the president for moving money around for TSA. God bless the president and Congress for having money in the big, beautiful bill that's giving us flexibility to deal with the Democrats who do not seem to care that they're endangering our country for their political purposes. I think where we stand is I think the Senate needs to come back in. I do not think they should be gone for this 2-week recess. They need to come back in, work to get a funding bill done like we passed out of the House. If we have to do it through reconciliation, fine. But what we shouldn't do, I think, is isolate ICE and Border Patrol to be used as a piñata and a punching bag by the Democrats. That's what they want. Let's do what we want. Let's fully fund the security of the United States, which is what the American people want us to do.
What did you think when the Senate left on a 2-week vacation and you guys were still working on the House side?
Yeah, pretty frustrating for them to dump that bill on us late Thursday night, that 2 a.m. vote, by voice vote, by the way, without full disclosure to a lot of my friends who are in the Senate. And then all of a sudden we're looking at this bill going, look, your message heading out of town is to fund DHS minus ICE and Border Patrol. And we looked at that and said, look, yes, we want to support TSA. Yes, we want to support the Coast Guard, but we're not going to leave ICE and Border Patrol stranded. Yes, we can go pull some money out of the big, beautiful bill to limp through it, but it's not easy to do, and the dollars will run out. We have a lot of our civilian folks, the support staff, people that were writing into us, calling us, saying, hey, guys, we're left dangling here. We don't think that's the right way to do business. So my feeling was, and the Speaker, God bless him, said, nope, the House is going to stand strong. We're going to fund it all, send that back over to the Senate, and that's where we stand. Now, again, we should go back to Washington. As you guys know, I'm on the campaign trail for Attorney General. It is in my personal interest to be in the state of Texas, both so I can see my family, but so I can be campaigning. But it is in my job as a congressman, we need to deliver. So I'll do whatever we need to do. I'll fly back up there in 2 hours if I need to, if the Speaker calls us back. But we ought to get together. Now, I've been having conversations with him, with the director of the Office of Management and Budget, the White House, with my friends in the Senate, Jody Arrington, a fellow Texan who's the chairman of the Budget Committee, with whom I worked to get the big, beautiful bill done last year. We're talking about options. We want to fund the security needs of the United States fully and not let the Democrats undermine it. And that's our goal, and that's what we intend to try to do.
Speaking of Chip Roy of Texas, Congressman, something that we've been talking about a lot on the show, because it's a big issue for the whole country. And I think that President Trump, with his federal initiatives on helping high crime cities, has shown that what is possible. You have a crime bill that you are interested in bringing forth and making the law of the land. What would it do? And what do you think is the mood of the American people right now for law enforcement and enforcing laws through our courts in general when it comes to career criminals, particularly violent criminals?
Well, I think people have seen the dangerous reality of putting people on the streets who shouldn't be there. And, you see these pendulum shifts. Those of us who are old enough to remember the 80s and early 90s, we then cracked down on crime. It was bipartisan, and we had a relatively safe country. And then now we've seen this pendulum back. They've been letting criminals out on the streets. All of these groups, Arabella, the Soros-funded groups, the Wren Collective, all of these entities that have put bad DAs and bad judges in place, they're letting criminals out. Well, when we fixed it 30 years ago, we had a 3 strikes and you're out provision, right? We had harsher penalties and sentencing guidelines. So what I've wanted to do, and I was a former federal prosecutor, I've watched those get watered down over the last 2 decades. But there were some criticisms that I took into account. For example, people said in the 3 strikes and you're out, you shouldn't have one of your strikes be a random misdemeanor, drug possession or something when you were a juvenile. And I said to myself, okay, fine. So let's prioritize the point. So in the bill that I drafted, I tried to put more emphasis behind a 3 strikes and you're out regime again to give it more power by basically putting a tiered system in place so there's points. So if you have a dangerous felony that you're committing and you got 3 strikes of those, you're out. That's permanent. But if it's a low-level misdemeanor, that would be a quarter point or a half point. Frankly, I think it's giving in a way that should get a significant amount of support. But the goal here is to reestablish a framework by which there's a legislative requirement that you put these guys in jail and don't let them out and stand in the way of judges or DAs who are not prosecuting or giving them sentences that would keep them off the streets. So I try to take away the excuses, if that makes sense, by restructuring the regime to make sure criminals stay in jail.
We're talking to Congressman Chip Roy. He is running for Attorney General of Texas. If you were Attorney General, one of your top focuses, I would imagine, in Texas would be prosecuting violent criminals and ensuring that they end up behind bars. You're in Washington, D.C. right now. Last year, 125-year low, according to data for murders. In Washington, D.C. so far this year compared to last year, murders are down 65%, according to the official Metro DC data that I am looking at right now. Sex abuse charges down 67%. Isn't what we've seen in DC and what we've seen in Memphis strong evidence that, as you're laying out with your potential bills, we don't have to deal with violent crime? We can actually drive it down to levels that we've never seen before and make all of us safer?
Absolutely, and it's the first order of government, right? And look, people ask me, why are you running for Attorney General? It's because I believe that the state of Texas is under attack. And I won't go through the entire list of things, but border, obviously, and the issue that we've been dealing with that there, thank God we've got President Trump, but the open border was destructive to Texas. It was also putting criminals on our streets, putting gang members on our streets, endangering our people. In addition to the March of Islam across Texas and other issues that we're dealing with, the issue of crime on our streets is a big one. And, Texas is known for law and order and justice. But if you look at what we've been dealing with in Houston and Dallas and Austin and San Antonio with these DAs and these judges that are leaving the criminals on the streets, you see what happens. And what the president did, he demonstrated that a strong law and order and presence of our law enforcement makes an enormous difference. And that's not rocket science. It's just common sense, but it takes courage and leadership to stand against the woke leftists, the Marxists, who are totally fine with us being in danger because they say that somehow it is, inappropriate or racist to say that we need to have law enforcement on the streets. But the funny thing is, when you talk to Hispanic Texans, Black Texans, people of all walks of life, they all want to have streets. So that's the first order of business of government. As Attorney General, I'll be working hard to do that, to secure the border, to put criminals behind bars, to work with local law enforcement to do it, to stop these judges, to stop these activist DAs, who, by the way, are well-funded. This is one last important point. Whether you're talking about crime, whether you're talking about these groups, Soros, whether you're talking about the Islamist movement across the state of Texas and the country, you got to go after the NGOs and the nonprofits. The Attorney General has massive power to open up their books, all of them, look at what they're doing, see where they're violating the law, and then pull their charter and shut them down. We have got to go after these groups who are organized against us and undermining our society and endangering us.
Congressman Roy, appreciate you being with us, sir.
Thanks, guys. Y'all take care. Happy Easter.
Clay, you may not know this, but sometimes I'm quite fashionable. Yesterday,
I definitely did not know that, but yes, continue.
Yes. Well, I will have you know that yesterday when I met up with some of our team at the event, I said, you guys see these? You guys see this? They said, oh, you clean up nice. You see this slick look? See these pants I'm wearing? These are Cozy Earth everywhere pants, my friend. That's right. I was rocking my Cozy Earth last night. Cozy Earth pants. They feel fantastic, and they look so good that I dressed them up with a sport coat. So I was quite fashionable, sir, at the event, thanks to Cozy Earth. But not only that, when I get home tonight, I'm going to be sleeping on Cozy Earth sheets. Cozy Earth has this amazing blanket, the bubble blanket, which my wife, unfortunately, hogs. I'm not going to lie. I sound like a wimp right now, but she hogs the bubble blanket when we're trying to snuggle up and watch TV at night. But the Cozy Earth products, they're incredible. And I understand why she wants that bubble blanket for herself, because it's quite soft and quite warm. Cozy Earth has so much great stuff. Everything they have on the clothing side is super comfortable. It wears well. It holds its form. And if you're looking for Mother's Day gifts, it's not too early to go online now at CozyEarth.com and get it done. Perhaps a Cozy Earth robe or PJs can be just the thing. You know, like our friend Jesse Kelly Clay, he's a robe guy. I don't know if you know that. He loves to rock a robe. But for all the ladies out there, for your man, or if you want for Mother's Day maybe, the robes from Cozy Earth, so comfortable. Cozy Earth backs everything with a 100-night trial and a 10-year warranty. Go to CozyEarth.com. Use my name, Buck, as your promo code. Get 20% off. CozyEarth.com, promo code Buck for 20% off. And if you want to be able to wear pants, like I said, that look good with whatever, you can wear them with a T-shirt. You can dress them up with a jacket and tie. The Cozy Earth Everywhere pants are amazing. I honestly have 6 pairs in my closet right now. 6 pairs of these pants. CozyEarth.com, promo code Buck for 20% off. And if you see a post-purchase survey, please mention you heard about Cozy Earth on Clay and Buck.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Mic drops that never sounded so good. Find them on the free iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Tired of spills and stains on your sofa? Wash away your worries with Anabay. Anabay is the only machine washable sofa inside and out, where designer quality meets budget-friendly prices. That's right, sofas start at just $699. Enjoy a no-risk experience with pet-friendly, stain-resistant, and changeable slip covers made with performance fabric. Experience cloud-like comfort with high-resilience foam that's hypoallergenic and never needs fluffing. The sturdy steel frame ensures longevity, and the modular pieces can be rearranged anytime. Shop WashableSofas.com for up to 60% off site-wide, backed by a 30-day satisfaction guarantee. If you're not absolutely in love, send it back for a full refund. No return shipping or restocking fees. Every penny back. Upgrade now at WashableSofas.com. Offers are subject to change, and certain restrictions may apply.
I need to be healthy every day to survive it and go through the next chemo round and the next chemo round. So it's important that work was part of that, to keep my mind busy for 8-9 hours. And then I had to go back and face the reality. I had a goal, and the goal is to survive.
Research shows there is a significant connection between the ability to continue to work and cancer recovery. We can make work a better place for healing.
Learn more and sign the pledge at workingwithcancerpledge.com.
Welcome back in, Clay Travis Buck Sexton Show. We are rolling through the Tuesday edition of the program. Tomorrow, major launch coming, as long as the weather holds up, from NASA, and we bring in now the director of NASA, the head of the space agency, Jared Isaacman. And this is a super exciting, Buck and I are very excited to talk with you. So thanks for making the time for us. I know it's a very, serious time for you guys, but I wanted to start with this question, before we get into the space launch. There is talk that we are going to be putting a base on the moon. Moon base, I guess, would be one way to put that. What would that look like, and what does that goal in terms of time stretch out to? Because that sounds pretty amazing.
Well, first of all, it's great to be on the show. Great to talk about the exciting mission that's scheduled to launch tomorrow. And you're absolutely right? President Trump and his national space policy said, pick up where Apollo 17 left off, send astronauts to the moon, do it frequently, but don't just go to put the flag there and leave the footsteps behind. Build an enduring presence, build a moon base, realize the scientific and economic value, do the in situ resource manufacturing, the experimentation, the testing that's going to be necessary so someday you can take the next giant leap to Mars.
So a base on space, how long until
on the moon?
Can? I'm sorry. Oh yeah, on the moon. But that would be in space, Clay. I was going to say a base in space. How long till we complete this race? I was trying to have a little rhyme fun here, but you jumped in. That's fair enough. Mr. Administrator, can you tell us what would this be able to do? And are we setting up the basic infrastructure here for a whole new generation or new generations of space travel, leveraging space for things here on Earth, including low Earth orbit, things like the data centers that will be able to be put there? I mean, what does the future of this look like? I know this amazing launch is coming up, but what's going to be happening after?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me tell you about it. So let's talk about the astronaut side of things. So tomorrow, Artemis 2 is going to launch. We're going to send 4 astronauts farther into space than we've ever sent humans before. They're going to go faster than humans have ever traveled before. So 250,000 miles away from Earth, going 25,000 miles an hour on a 10-day journey to test out the spaceship before they'll splash down off the West Coast. That's Artemis 2. That journey begins tomorrow. Next up, Artemis 3, 2027. We're going to launch the same rocket. This time, the astronauts are going to rendezvous and dock with the lunar lander in Earth orbit, test out the integrated systems. This is just how we did it during the Apollo era, during Apollo 9. And then we're going to use that to gain confidence to land those astronauts on the moon in 2028 on Artemis 4. Now, in parallel, we're building the base. Again, we're not just going there to pick up the rocks this time. We're going to stay. So starting in the beginning of 2027, people are going to be able to witness on a near monthly cadence robotic landings on the moon. We're going to have rovers driving around. We're going to be testing out uncrewed mobility, crewed mobility, power generation, navigation. We're going to do surface improvements. We are going to learn as much as we can in preparation for when the astronauts arrive. And I'll tell you, we're going to bring everybody along with us. We're going to put observation satellites up, communication satellites. Heck, there's going to be a NASA moon base website where people are going to log in and watch the moon base being constructed almost in real time.
This is all incredible. It has been, for people out there, this is kind of extraordinary. In 1903, I believe I'm right, Orville and Wilbur Wright began to fly. In 1969, we put men on the moon. So 66 years from the creation of the first aircraft, the first time of flight, to on the moon. And then we kind of just stopped. And obviously Elon Musk, who I know you know very well, has been important in propelling the space advancement. How do we avoid stagnating again? I love these aspirational goals that you're laying out, but I think if we went back in time to 1969, Americans would actually be stunned that our space progress has been quite limited since then.
I think this is extremely fair, right? I mean, for 35 years, every president has called for a return to the moon. It sounds good, but what about putting it in practice? President Trump, during his first term, created the Artemis program. President Trump, on my first day on the job, the day I was sworn in, gave me a national space policy and an executive order that said, get back to the moon and do it to stay this time. Build the moon base. and invest in the next giant leap capabilities. We're going to launch a nuclear-powered spaceship in 2028 called Freedom, SR-1 Freedom. That's going to be nuclear power and propulsion, and it's going to deliver a scientific payload to Mars, because that's the kind of capabilities you're going to need someday for Mars. So you're absolutely right. We took a break from deep space exploration for a while. We didn't have a competitor. We won the first race, but we have a competitor now. The new race is on. It's to get back to the moon. It's to do it to stay. It's to learn so you can undertake, big, bold endeavors like going to Mars someday. That's what the president has put in motion. And we've already enacted plans. We're not just doing talk about this. We had a big event last week where we shared with industry and all our international partners how we're going to do it. We dropped RFIs, RFPs, had breakout sessions the next day, because now we're in execution mode.
Can you speak to some of the commercial and national security applications of space exploration as it's lined up? I mean, you just laid out for us what the timeline is, but I think, for example, one of the amazing things that SpaceX has done is by creating internet essentially beamed down from satellites, there's a whole commercial application now for this. And SpaceX is obviously putting satellites into space for private entities. So there's commercialization. So I know there's more commercial options that this will lay the pathway for. Can you speak to that? And also why, from a national security perspective, space, NASA, what's going on right now with this program is so important?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell you what SpaceX did, which is so important, is they figured out how to reuse the rocket again. And not months later, but to do it in weeks. Why does this matter? I mean, think about it. If you were traveling with your family to Disney World, but you had to throw away the 737, how much would it cost to get to Disney World, right? That's not how we want to do it anymore. SpaceX pioneered rapid reusability of the first stage of the booster. And what that did is it brought the cost to put mass in orbit down materially. Now, what does that serve? That serves a lot of different applications. You can now have high-speed internet in low Earth orbit. But it has national security applications as well. I mean, the satellites that we use in conflict for observation, for communication, for command and control, those are all put up now far more affordably than ever before, thanks to reusability. But it's also great for science and discovery, right? I mean, exploring the worlds beyond ours is the greatest adventure in human history. We can launch more rovers now to Mars, more probes, more telescopes to look back into the beginning of our universe, thanks to this reusable technology. And it's not just SpaceX anymore. Blue Origin has this capability. Rocket Lab is doing it. I mean, what they did was a game changer, and they're about to change it all over again now with Starship, where both the first half of the rocket and the upper half are going to be reusable. That's going to be a light switch moment for humanity.
We're talking to Jared Isaacman, head of NASA, in advance of the launch tomorrow. My 18-year-old is a big space kid. Like, he's just fascinated by it all. I told him we were going to have you on the program today, and he told me, will you ask him, how long will it be, in his opinion, until we can put a man or woman on the surface of Mars? What does that time frame look like to you? I understand the focus right now is moon-based, but aspirationally, having so-called moonshots matters. It really kind of gets the attention of my 18-year-old. I bet there's a lot of kids out there, grandkids out there that are going to be listening to this segment that would love to know an answer to that, to think aspirationally about our future in the stars.
Sure. I mean, I think the answer is it's probably somewhere in that 10 to 20-year timeline. But I'll tell you, this is why it's so imperative to return to the moon and build the moon base. So where we are targeting to build the base that President Trump called for in his space policy is the South Pole. And in the permanently shaded regions of the South Pole of the moon, you have water ice. So when we land there, when we build the base, we're going to work with that ice and use it to make propellant. And that's going to be key, because I'll tell you, when you see American astronauts step foot off the Artemis 4 lander and are on the moon, no, at that point in time, we have the capability to send astronauts to Mars. The hard part is, how do you bring them home? And when they're there, they're going to have to make their own propellant to make that return voyage, and we will master those skills on the South Pole of the moon, and then we'll be ready to undertake that grand journey.
One last question. Tomorrow, this is going to be happening in theory at what time? For people out there that want to monitor this incredible endeavor, what should they know? What are the details?
So it's 6:24 p.m. at Kennedy Space Center. That's when our launch window opens. And that is the earliest point that Artemis 2 could ignite. And you got 8.8 million pounds of thrust sending those astronauts out into space, 25,000 miles an hour, farther into space than any humans ever gone before.
Wow. It's exciting. Well, we know how busy you are. This has been awesome. We appreciate you making the time, and we look forward to watching the success tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your interest in NASA.
Thank you. That's Jared Isaacman, the head of NASA. It's really cool. Again, I like your question, Buck, because it kind of goes to how are these things that we learn going to be applied to other facets of life. And I think it's really cool to think about a moon base as an aspirational goal to teach us how to one day put life onto Mars and make us a multi-planetary species, which is, I think, pretty incredible. But I want to tell you, in the meantime, maybe you just want to worry about life on here on good old Earth, and maybe you're concerned about some of the catastrophes that happen or just losing power. Rapid Radios right now has instant push-to-talk communication, coast-to-coast, unlimited range. Remember, no contracts, no monthly fees. Turn them on and start talking. These Rapid Radios, they're trusted by Border Control team members, law enforcement, over 500,000 users nationwide. Get hooked up today. Young kids, elderly parents, someone out there that maybe isn't great on cell phones, but also multi-day charges in the event that your power goes out. Right now, you get a tactical radio bag, USB charger, and an EMP Faraday bag. Plus, every order has a 30-day money-back guarantee. They're ready right out of the box. Free gear, as I just laid out with your order. Go to rapidradios.com, code radio for 5% off and free shipping from Michigan. When you need to be heard, no matter where or when, go to rapidradios.com. Rapid Radios, communication redefined.
Do not be an unk. Follow Clay and Buck on YouTube. Subscribe, like, and share.
And keep the conversation going.
Sink into affordable luxury. Anabay is the only machine-washable sofa, inside and out. With stain-resistant slip covers and a cloud-like frame duvet, everything goes right in the wash. Plus, the modular design lets you change the look of your space anytime. Visit WashableSofas.com to upgrade your home. Shop up to 60% off site-wide, with sofas starting at just $699 and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Shop now at WashableSofas.com. Offers are subject to change, and certain restrictions may apply.
When I was diagnosed, all I wanted to do was get back to work. I wanted to get back to that trajectory that I was on prior to the cancer. I always felt like I had value, I had a place on the team. To just be treated with dignity, it means everything.
Research shows there is a significant connection between the ability to continue to work and cancer recovery. We can make work a better place for healing.
Learn more and sign the pledge at workingwithcancerpledge.com.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.